Hey everyone, it's Raj from 3CB Performance. Arsenal teammates and defensive backline colleagues Rob Holding and Hector Bellerin are both in the midst of returning from left knee ACL ruptures that prematurely ended their 2018-2019 campaign. Holding ruptured his in early December against Man United, while Bellerin did his in mid-January versus Chelsea. It's no coincidence that each suffered the injury in high-profile matches, as the research generally shows that injury risk increases as the intensity and competition of a match increases. Both currently find themselves on the road to recovery, albeit on different parts of the journey, which typically takes up to 9 months. Each player returning to his respective pre-injury levels of performance will be commensurate with Arsenal possibly returning to defensive competence. With that in mind, I wanted to check in on each player, including where they currently stand in rehab, what to expect when each gets back, and considerations to think about moving forward. Rob was injured roughly a month and a half before Hector, so naturally he's farther along in the rehab process, currently in the final steps of the return to play protocol. He did suffer an undisclosed setback about a month ago with fears that it would cost him the first few weeks of the Premier League season, but after intensive one-on-one training with a specialist in the States, he has emerged ahead of schedule. Accordingly, he participated in his first full training session ahead of the team's friendly with Bayern Munich, and if everything goes to plan, will reportedly test out the left knee in an upcoming preseason game in late July or early August. Bellerin hasn't yet returned to on-field training with the team, but has returned to controlled on-field activities and continues to focus on targeted strengthening and fitness for the left knee and body in general. Typically, a player will have to complete and pass a battery of side-to-side strength, coordination, agility, and power tests before being allowed to return to on-field training. These tests measure the difference between the injured and non-injured side to make sure there is no significant asymmetry between the two, a key indicator of future injury. With Holding tracking to possibly be ready for the start of the season and Bellerin also ahead of schedule with a possible return in September, the question becomes, the excellent news about recovery from ACL injuries is that research continually shows better and better outcomes with players returning quicker to their pre-injury levels of performance. The management techniques and rehab protocols continue to get sharper and sharper. Although I do fully expect both Holding and Bellerin to eventually return to their pre-injury selves, I always stress the need for patience. They need time to reacclimate mentally and physically, while also regaining in-game fitness, technique, timing, and composure. Those things take time, and it will be an up and down process. Further, one of the final hurdles to clear when returning from ACL injury is called kinesiophobia, also known as fear of movement or re-injury. The research repeatedly shows that movement confidence is one of the final things to return, and for anyone who's gone through a major injury and returned, they'll tell you that it can be a daunting mental struggle at times, a struggle that is reinforced by the physical struggle of discomfort, pain, and soreness that comes when returning from 7 to 9 months off the pitch. Those issues are inherent in any return, and it's why I always preach patience to both players and fans alike. Additionally, Holding and Bellerin face other inherent post-ACL repair risk. The research shows that there's a roughly 3% chance of re-rupturing the surgically repaired ACL, along with increased risk for rupturing the contralateral, the other knee, ACL as well, due to compensation. Generally, there's increased risk for compensatory injury throughout the lower body because stronger body regions will take on more of the load and stress to make up for an injured one. Additionally, there's increased risk for cartilage wear and tear in the knee. Cartilage is a shock-absorbing, friction-reducing tissue in the knee joint, and an ACL injury often results in cartilage damage as well. For example, we know that Bellerin had extensive meniscus damage along with the ruptured left ACL. In some instances, particularly in traumatic ACL ruptures where the knee takes a direct blow, there's a chemical cascade which increases the rate of cartilage degeneration, potentially leading to earlier signs of mild arthritis. An example of that is Nabil Fekir, whose transfer with Liverpool last summer fell through due to cartilage concerns and Lyon's unwillingness to renegotiate. All that being said, these risks are inherent after any ACL rupture, so now is not the time to panic, doctor. That comes later, when you see Mustafi go to ground in the box. There are a number of ways to reduce these risks. The first is through careful and methodical ramping up of activity. I think most people understand the need for gradual progression during the rehab process, but that principle still applies after being cleared to play. The reality is no amount of rehab, training, or preseason games can replicate or prepare you for the mental and physical intensity of actual matches, especially in the Premier League, where every game can be a dogfight. The team has to guard against placing Holding or Bellerin into a quote-unquote too much too soon scenario, where they are doing more activity at a higher intensity than their body and mind are ready for. This concept of too much too soon is quantified in the sports science world through a formula known as the acute to chronic workload ratio. If players are outside a specific ratio of preparation versus current workload, their soft tissue, ligaments, tendons, muscles, injury risk increases 7 times during the current training week and nearly 10 times in the subsequent training week. For that reason, both Holding and Bellerin need to be brought along slowly and methodically in-game and appropriately rotated in and out of lineups. Lastly, both players will have to be even more disciplined and robust with their fitness and training, including cardiovascular fitness to reduce fatigue, which is a key injury risk indicator, muscular strengthening, and neuromuscular training, which is the system that informs your brain of where your body is in space and allows to make quick adjustments. To that point, one of the key tenets to prevent ACL injury is called, quote, reactive neuromuscular training, or RNT for short. This training sharpens the neuromuscular connection by acclimating the mind and body to spontaneous reactionary movements that often lead to ACL tears. Here's to a happy and healthy season for these two youngsters and a return to defensive relevance for this generous team. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. My goal is to provide you with in-depth, evidence-based, narrative-free analysis. You can always find me on IG and Twitter at 3CB Performance. Make sure to sub to the channel for the latest updates. 3CB out.